being in IT, not wanting to take too much risk, I was thinking, maybe I'll buy, one property per year over the next 2 or 3 years. And then, sure enough, when I started buying, I had 3 within 6 weeks, and I was thinking, wait a sec, this is going pretty quick.
This is Property Investory, where we talk to successful property investors to find out more about their stories, mindset, and strategies. I'm Taran Shum, and in this episode on Property Investory, we're chatting to mortgage lending specialist Sze Chuah on how he acquired the majority of his 25 properties within 2 years. We'll hear how his journey was out of necessity in creating a better life, and about the moment when tragic news turned into a valuable aha moment for him. Chuah shares a bit about what he's done and his passion for helping others achieve their goals with property investing.
I am the director at MLS Finance. I'm a property investor, have been for quite a while now. Started the journey when I was in the corporate world. I was actually an IT professional by trade for the last 10, 15 years. Started purchasing property, built up a sizable portfolio, and then decided I wanted to start my business in a related field, which was finance that specialises for property investors.
That's great. It's it's very, very common. I've spoken to a lot of investors who come from IT as well, and I have to say I'm also from IT too.
I feel you, brother. It's a good industry to get in from IT because as with IT, property investing, very rational, very about the numbers, and and I was a project manager back in the day, and it's a very similar process. You kind of focus on an outcome that you want to achieve. As with property, you want to build up a portfolio, whatever it is, get a passive income stream, and then you kind of you plan for that. And you execute a plan. So, I guess I was able to transfer those skills to be able to start the journey and go through a property journey that I'm still going through.
Fantastic. It's very, very similar to what I resonate with you so much because it is pretty much a project, if you put it in a very simplistic terms. And if you've got those good skills, it's very much you can apply it pretty much anywhere in your life, whether it be property or...
Isn't every transaction a mini project in itself? You've got to get the finance, and B, you've got to find a property, and you've got to negotiate on it, and you've got to get it across the line, and get the finance across the line, and do your pest and building, and then get everything in order, all the contracts signed. And then settle on it, and then get it tenanted, and then there may be some work that needs to be done on it. So even every property within that journey is a mini project.
So, what does a day in his life look like?
I come into the office. I might be seeing clients, figuring out what they are looking to achieve with buying a property or refinancing a loan, getting some equity out, speaking to my team about how all the pipeline deals are going, speaking to clients about giving them an update on as to how their loans are tracking, if there are any issues, hopefully giving them good news, and following up with staff, sometimes lenders, business partners, referral partners, and then finish up about anywhere from 7 o'clock to 8:30, 9 o'clock. Go home, have a late dinner, sometimes jump onto the laptop again, finish up some paperwork, and crash around midnight. That's a standard day for me.
Despite the long hours, Chuah is passionate about what he does and wouldn't have it any other way.
The property journey is something that has really helped me along, with my life, and it has made such a difference to my life. So, being able to help, my clients with it now, it's a real privilege. It's a busy time in the business as well. So, the long hours are kind of required, hoping that it's not always going to be like this, and I trust that it's not always going to be like this. But sometimes when it's called for, you've just got to do the hard yards
just to get the things over the line. And I think that's important for any property deal, especially when you've got clients who really, really trust and rely on finance too. So it's
it's all time critical, isn't it? There's always a cooling off period. The deposits due, the finance formal approvals due before that. There's always a settlement date. The clients will be paying interest and penalties after that date. So, you're always running to a time frame, and there's always new clients that want to know what they can do with their portfolio. Can they make the next purchase? We're always running to a schedule. So and I'd have it no other way. It sort of keeps me ticking along as well, and it sort of pushes me out of bed every day and makes me do the long hours. So it's all part and parcel.
Growing up in Sydney, New South Wales, he discovered his passion for property investing while working in his first IT job.
Well, I was born in New Zealand, so don't hold that against me. I'm a Kiwi. I'm a Kiwi. I go for the All Blacks. So I was born in Windy Wellington, or Wundy Wellington, as they call it over there, but came over here to Sydney when I was about 2 or 3 years old. Grew up in Cherrybrook, spent about 25 years of my life there. Then got married and moved out from the parents' place, and lived in a sort of couple of different areas like Campsie and West Ryde, and currently live in Ryde now.
You've done a little bit of investing at that point in time because you've moved on and so forth. Where did you go to school, and what did you study, and those kind of things as well?
So I went to school at the local public school in Cherrybrook, and then went to high school in the city at Sydney Grammar, and studied both finance and computer science at the Uni of New South Wales. And then, just went, got a grad role at the tax office in IT, and then just went down that path, as I said, for about 10 or so years. And then during that time, that was when I was kind of exposed to property investing, and I just thought, I'll dabble in it for a little bit. Gradually got into it, and got into it a lot bigger and faster than I thought I would. And then just realised that really was my passion and my life's calling. So decided to go down that path. And so I started. I built up a reasonable sized portfolio within a short period of time, within a couple of years, and then decided that I wanted to do some broking part-time while I was at my IT job. And then, did that for a little while, and then went out on my own, and I owned a Yellow Brick Road franchise for about 3 or so years, the franchise in Parramatta. And then more recently, we've just gone independent, and now we're MLS Finance.
Although Chuah's parents had an impact on him in terms of creating a stable future for himself, his interest in property came from elsewhere.
My parents' influence was really was quite profound. So on the one hand, growing up in a sort of semi-traditional Asian family, the values of kind of austerity and saving for the future and investing for the future they were drilled in at a very, very early age. So, it was kind of always with me to sort of always look at trying to be or working towards financial stability, financial security, even financial independence. But their idea of that was always, go through school, get good grades, go through uni, get a degree, work hard in your job, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder. And that was very much their kind of view. And Mum has always been into shares. So like even to this day, she looks at, she's 78 years old, and she still jumps on the laptop and looks at charts and all sorts of stuff around technical analysis. But, I tried to sort of get into shares, and I just didn't resonate with me. Like, it just, there's something about it that, where, you could buy a share and then, given one news event, the CEO resigns, or there's a scandal within the company or something, and all of a sudden the money that you put in could be worth half of what it was the day previous. So like it just and the time taken to continually research the market and news and stuff, it just didn't seem right to me. So when I sort of got into property because a few things happened in my own life that kind of forced me to look at wealth creation and investing a lot more seriously than I had in the years preceding. It kind of that gave me a bit of a push. And when I sort of looked at shares and managed funds and futures and options and all that kind of stuff, didn't really kind of resonate with me. But when I looked at property, that just seemed a lot more straightforward to me. So that's how I got into it.
The necessity of taking wealth creation more seriously was embedded in not being content with the life he was living.
It was kind of really at a dark point in my life. My wife and I were, as I said earlier, climbing the corporate ladder, and but we were both working, pretty long hours. And my wife in particular, she was really unhappy in her job. Like she had some issues with her manager at the time, and she just really didn't enjoy work, and she associated a lot of pain with work. She'd come home really upset every day, and she'd wake up in the morning dreading going to work, and like we just found it wasn't really a sustainable way of living. And like her preference was, I'd really like to have a family and not have to go back to work. And deep down, I was thinking that's nice, but how are we going to afford that? When it sort of went on for months and even like a year or 2 years, and we were both sort of sticking it out in our jobs, and I was thinking there must be a better way than this. And then at that point in time, I was kind of thinking, like I've got to do something. Again, I'd always been sort of semi-interested in investing, but that was really the push that I needed to really look into it seriously. So, that was the necessity that kind of drove it.
Having begun to look into property investments at that tipping point in life, Chuah was able to build his portfolio very quickly.
Right now, we own and control 25 properties across our portfolio. So that's within, my name, my wife's name, our family trust, and also our super fund as well. I went in all those years ago, fairly risk averse. Being in IT, not wanting to take too much risk. I was thinking, maybe I'll buy, one property per year over the next 2 or 3 years, and then, sure as sure enough, when I started buying, I had three within 6 weeks, and I was thinking, wait a sec, this is this is going pretty quick. But there are a few things that kind of made me just kind of believe that I was on the right track. And even though, obviously with property you don't see the capital growth for a while. There are a couple of things that just sort of prompted me to think, I feel like we're on the right track. And then, just really, I think we bought about 10 or 12 in the first year. And then, it's probably about another 6 or 7 the year after that. So, things really kind of accelerated.
However, before making that vital step to invest into his first property, it took months of difficult planning and researching.
Like kind of contrary to what I was saying, it actually took about 6 to 12 months of finding my feet before sort of charging ahead, because I was trying to figure out what kind of strategy that I'd take. So at the start I was thinking, okay, I'm going to do this myself. I'm just going to find a suburb and then find a property and then buy it. Sounds straightforward, right? And then I found like I was driving around weekend after weekend, suburb after suburb, not even able to pick a suburb that I wanted to buy in, and going to seminars and then going to expos and just trying to figure out. I guess trying to educate myself as well, because I found that trying to do it myself wasn't necessarily the most effective way. And then eventually came across a buyer's agency, and they helped me, with the whole kind of education piece, and they helped me find an area and then purchase in that area.
His first foray into property investing came with a tragic element, placing one of his first investments in a negative light to the public eye.
Yeah, the first one was in Carramar, which is in the south west of Sydney, sort of near Liverpool or Fairfield kind of way. And it was for about $180,000. The rent on it was $270 a week, and it kind of being somebody who grew up in Cherrybrook and being familiar with the sort of northwest style of you have a property that's worth $400,000 and it rents for $350 a week. Like having a property that was in a different demographic, and the yield was so much higher. I had a lot of doubts about it, but again, thankfully, the buyer's agency that I used was there to support me and give me all of their insight and assurances. And then I sort of, with a bit of trepidation, I just thought, I'll give it a try. And then had a couple of other transactions after that. But the penny really dropped when this particular buyer's agency asked me to buy in Mount Druitt, and I was like, am I sure I want to do that? Because Mount Druitt, I'm familiar with Sydney. I know it's a rougher part of Sydney. Are the prices ever going to go up? And then so I sort of decided to think. I said, okay, I'll get into it. I'll just bite the bullet, and they may be right. And then so I exchanged the contracts. It was a couple of weeks out from settlement, and then there was a bit of a tragic story that happened at the time.
This tragic accident about a little girl was all over the news, and Chuah noticed something familiar about the location.
It ended up being that she was murdered by her parents or step-parents, and really tragic story. And I was watching the news report one night, and I looked in the background of where the reporter was speaking, and it was actually in that building. It all happened in that building that I bought in. So I completely panicked. I just thought, this is crazy. It's a tragic story, but I've also just spent a lot of money buying in this place. It's probably going to go down. It's probably never going to get rented out. So I drove up to Mount Druitt, and sure enough, there was like a a police command out the front. There was all the police tape everywhere. There was a sea of flowers and teddy bears and people talking out the front. And I was just thinking, what have I done? What have I done? But sure enough, after it settled, there was a tenant that moved in, that took up the place and moved in, a week or two straight after that. And then at that point, the penny dropped, and I was like, you know what, this strategy works. If you're buying in a place that has solid fundamentals, that has strong demand for housing, whether it be owner occupied or for renting or for both. It has good infrastructure. It's got transport, schools, etc. It really doesn't matter what your own personal beliefs are about that particular area. Like it's the old adage of taking the emotion out of investing. So yeah, that's I guess those couple of properties really kind of made the penny drop for me and realize, wow, this property investment thing, it actually, it can work.
This also happened to be the moment where everything clicked and fell into place for Chuah.
I think I needed that to really kind of trust in the strategy and the plan, because let's face it, whenever you're buying a property, as obvious as it sounds, like you're shelling out a lot of money, and you're sort of going into it with a bit of a leap of faith. So I think it was absolutely necessary that I had that aha moment, and went from, because a lot of it is psychology, right? Like you kind of you're kind of grappling with your own fears, or your own concerns, or your or experiences of the past, or hearing horror stories, or else you're being sold by someone who's supposedly had stellar moments. It's nothing like kind of experiencing it for yourself and having that that moment where you go, okay, it all makes sense to me, because it's one thing hearing about it or reading about it, or listening to it from another source. It's completely different when you sort of live it.
In terms of the location of his properties, he believes in diversifying his portfolio to avoid putting all his eggs in one basket.
Many of my properties are in Sydney and New South Wales. I'd say probably about 2/3 of them. I've got around about 8 properties or so in Queensland, so kind of the greater Brisbane area. So like the Logan area and surrounds, the Ipswich area and surrounds. I've got a couple further up the Queensland coast. Within New South Wales, it's mainly kind of Western Sydney, so like Campbelltown, Liverpool, Parramatta kind of area, Mount Druitt area, so sort of the Greater West. And there's a few regional properties that I have. So I've got one in Moree, one in Albury area, Tamworth, Orange. So yeah, they're kind of a bit spread out, and I guess that was also kind of by design. Like I was clear from the start that you don't want to buy all in the same suburb, or just buy one block of 10 units and have all of your money sitting in that. It's fairly clear that that may serve you really well, but what if it doesn't?
Chuah's worst investing moment came when one of his property was set on fire, not once, but twice.
I had a pretty scary moment last year. I was actually overseas, and one of my staff called me and said, "I'm really, really sorry to spoil your trip, but one of your properties is burnt down." And like I was sort of in stunned silence for a little while, and I said, "Is anyone hurt?" And the answer was no. And then the next most, it was probably, one of the longest 10 seconds of my life. I kind of fumbled on my phone frantically just to make sure that my insurance policy was still in place. So, and thankfully it was. And it was a strange story because what happened was it appears like it was kind of tenant related, either the kids or an electrical, something to do with an electrical fire, and it kind of burnt pretty much a lot of the house and a hole in the roof, and so. We were sort of in the process of getting it all assessed, and what was going to be the damage, and that in itself probably took about 6 months. So, and part of the complication was this property was it was an older place, and it had fibro in it or asbestos in it. So it needed to be sort of treated with a bit more care, and then. The insurance company was sort of in the process of getting it finalised, and then I get a call, like this is back in February, from the property manager saying, your property, last night there was another fire. You must be kidding. So apparently some hoodlums or whoever it was sort of went around and saw that the property was kind of half burnt, and they just decided to finish the job. So so we sort of went through the whole process again, and then finally it's just only literally last month it's just been resolved, and the whole thing settled. So. Yeah, I'm sitting on a piece of land with a lot of charcoal on it. So if any of your listeners are interested in something like that, feel free to get in touch.
Wow! So could that be turned into some potential development opportunity? Is that a great story that you could turn it into?
Oh, look, it's unlikely in this particular area. It's one of the regional properties that I have. It's the demographics probably don't lend itself to a new development or anything.
So, what held Chuah back from initially investing in property?
I think the fear of loss. The fear of loss was holding me back. As in, my I guess background is a fairly risk averse. Again, university educated, family very kind of conservative Asian. My parents had only ever owned their house that they lived in, or they still live in Cherrybrook, and also at some point in time, a third of another investment unit in Westmead. So it was very much, when I spoke to my parents about it, Mum was actually, saying, don't go into it. It's not a good idea. You might lose a lot of money, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess from that point on, I was concerned that, what if something went wrong? So that was, I guess, the mindset aspect of it, like the fear of it. And also, like when you're starting out, the kind of enormity of the task ahead, as in, I had started out kind of just not having any networks or contacts, or you just you don't know where to start. As I said, I was driving around suburb after suburb. At one point, a work colleague said, maybe you should get a Residex report, and so I purchased that online, and then I went through the top 100 suburbs, and I still couldn't pick one because there's just so much information out there. There's, as I said earlier, I was doing the seminar circuit. where everybody has a different product offering or a different story, or you're kind of overwhelmed by the whole thing. So it was a bit daunting at the start.
How did your mum feel now, like, with your substantial portfolio? I wonder what she's saying.
I think my parents are pretty they're pretty close-lipped about it. They're kind of they ask me every now and then, are you still buying? So I think there's an element of kind of either wonder or curiosity, and there's also the element of still the worry. What if there's a property bubble? What if everything goes down the drain? So and I guess that's they're kind of rational concerns, right? There's always risk associated with any business or investment activity, and I guess without really kind of consciously doing it over the first few years, a lot of what I did was mitigation of risk mitigation, and this is what I talk to a lot of my clients now about. It's all well and good to go and want to buy 10 properties or 15 properties or however many it is, but really, there's things that could go wrong. So we talked about the insurance side, the building insurance side. What are other risks? What are the risks with the market? What are the risks with the strategy that you're looking at? And then probably even more critically, how can we mitigate those risks? Is it do we need to look at having a cash surplus, or do we need to have a look at our life insurances, our income insurances? Do we need to seek expert advice in accounting or purchasing the property, or legal or finance, or whatever it is? And all of those are really important risk mitigations.
He sought out additional experts to help develop his own bread and butter strategy and to form his team.
It was mainly the buyer's agents that helped me. I was really fortunate in that I had my sister-in-law who did all the conveyancing for me. So again, part of that trusted team thing, where I knew that she was always following up the vendor, she was always following up all parties, and she was always on the lookout for our interests. And I had a really good accountant also at the time. So yeah, again, the value of the team, like you mentioned earlier, it's just so important. The team having expertise and specialization in each of in their respective areas. That was, I guess, that was the invaluable part. And you take advice from those experts, because they've seen 100 transactions or 1,000 transactions in the past, and they know what to do, not just to set up your portfolio or to make the purchase right, but if in case something went wrong, they could give advice on that.
To take Chuah from 0 to 25 properties, he enlisted the help of a buyer's agency, which became a crucial step in building his wealth through property.
The buyer's agents is a really critical cog in the wheel, because many, like myself, and I think many people many of my colleagues or friends, family, a lot of people aren't property experts, but a lot of people look at buying property themselves. And in hindsight, like, I'm thinking back, going, and I was sort of wanting to do the same. So, like, definitely not judging them or anything like that. But it doesn't really kind of make sense when you think it's the biggest commitment that you'll ever make, and one of the biggest financial commitments and life commitments that you'll make, buying either an owner-occupied or an investment property. And people don't seek expert advice on it. Where they'll seek expert advice on many other things. Their health through a doctor or a dentist, or their car or a mechanic. So why wouldn't you kind of seek expert advice on that particular transaction? So the buyer's agencies are really important, and I'm not saying you can't buy a property by yourself, because when you're buying an owner occupied, you're buying in an area with your own kind of requirements in mind, a particular lifestyle, a particular locality, access to transport, all of those things. So it kind of makes sense. But when buying an investment, it's so important to get it right, because the flip side of getting it right can be that it can set you back significantly if you buy in an area that doesn't do anything for many years, or even worse, if you're buying in a place that's overvalued, or there's an oversupply or something wrong with the area. So I think having that buyer's agent that sits down and does this research and does transactions and speaking to local agents and monitoring those particular markets in those particular areas, or even greater kind of New South Wales, Australia, is so important, because it's that expert advice. And I guess the other thing with the buyer's agents I found was it saved me so much time myself. I'd gone through the motions of trying to find a suburb and a house that I was completely unsuccessful with. And the buyer's agents, again, that's their job, day-to-day research and recommendations and negotiations. So what the buyer's agents helped me with a lot was, I didn't have to go in and negotiate with the agents or vendor around the not just the price of the property, but also the terms, a longer settlement or early access or whatever it is. It was that's all part of their service, and these buyer's agents are expensive, but if they're adding value to the transaction, and this is how I describe it to my clients who ask for my advice for whether they should use a buyer's agency. If it's going to add value to you, then absolutely. Again, nothing wrong with if you're an expert in the area that you're looking to buy in, or you've done a lot of research and you're happy to pound the pavement and go to open homes and speak to agents and do all of that and do all of the negotiations. Absolutely nothing wrong with doing it yourself. It just takes longer. And if you're not an expert in the area or in property and houses, and you don't really know what you're looking for, then you could make a very expensive mistake, which, again, it's another form of insurance. You pay a buyer's agency fee, but you know that you're going to get a quality outcome.
It's also important for the buyer's agent to fit in with the other members of your property team in order for things to run smoothly.
The team is so important, because you can't be an expert in every single area, and that's what professionals are there for. So, having a team that you can trust, and not only that you can trust, but also work well together. So, the buyer's agents, working in with the solicitor, working in with the broker, getting input from the accountant as to which name to purchase the property in, or which entity, what's most tax effective, and have it all coming together. The purchase of a property is a massive milestone, because you can't undo it easily, right? It's a very liquid asset. The title deed's set almost in stone. And there are ways to change it, but it's very expensive.
The best advice he has received is focused on creating a good mindset around your approach to property.
Probably the best advice is it's 80% psychology, 20% strategy. So before getting into the nuts and bolts of, which area to buy and whatever it is, if you've got a good attitude towards investing and a good strategy towards investing, that's probably the most important thing. Getting that fixed, and then if it needs fixing, and after that, the strategy will follow. The techniques and the team and all the rest of it will follow. So yeah, I'm a big fan of personal development. I'm a bit of a seminar junkie. I like Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, and a lot of the kind of experts that have been around for many years. That kind of that look at that sort of psychology aspect of it, I find that really helpful, really inspiring as well.
At the beginning of Chuah's journey, it wasn't part of his strategy to use a buyer's agent. However, as he continued to educate himself on property, he came across a forum which led him to it.
I think I hadn't even heard of what a buyer's agent was back when I was going through the whole thing. That's how new I was, right? Back then they didn't have podcasts, but I was researching online and going to websites and going to expos and sitting in on seminars, and it wasn't until I actually stumbled over this particular group on an internet forum that I thought, oh, you know what, I might check it out. And it didn't kind of make initial sense to me at the start. It was like, I was just trying everything. I was just following up every lead that I could, and just seeing where it took me. And that in itself was kind of a long and exhausting process. It was just, but it was a necessary one because, again, there's a lot of information out there. It's sort of about filtering out the ones that are suitable to you and your situations.
From there, he absorbed their strategy and utilized it to begin building his portfolio.
When I went to one of their information nights, I kind of sat in on it and I kind of listened to them, and I think just being there in person and having the ability to ask them questions and kind of interact with them, I think that was as much of an influencing factor as much as the strategy that they kind of touted. Everything made sense to me, the way that they explained it, and it seemed like a kind of a relatively low risk, straightforward kind of strategy. It's just a buy and hold strategy, from at the most basic form. But the fact that, I could actually talk to the guys and, ask them questions, and, they had their own experiences, and they just seemed like genuine guys. I think it sort of came down to gut feel, and then at that point in time, I sort of said, you know what, I'll give this a go. And then, that's when I sort of bought the 3 properties in 6 weeks. But even then, I kind of I still had my doubts until that aha moment where I said, you know what, everything to date that they said has kind of turned out. They said, this property would rent for $360 a week, and it's getting $370 a week. Even though you don't know with real estate, you don't know how the property is going to perform in terms of the capital growth, because obviously that happens over a number of years. It just felt right. I had the team in place. I had something to sort of aim towards, and I was like, you know what, I think it's working, so I'm just going to continue the strategy.
As Chuah has built his portfolio, his goals have also evolved greatly over time as well.
The initial goal was to buy 3 properties in 3 years, so 1 property a year, and that was quickly shot out of the air. And I guess the goals keep on keep on changing. Like the initial goal sort of went from 3 properties to 10 properties to 20 properties, and now it's 50 properties. But I guess the number doesn't really matter. What matters is that there is a goal in place, and you're sort of moving towards it, and the target's in place for you to shoot at, and just as long as you're aiming that general direction, you're moving in the right direction. Look, I want to achieve like a level of financial independence, and with the portfolio, I have an equity goal, so an equity goal of $10 million. And a passive income goal as well. So there are kind of a couple of sub goals, but again they sort of almost seem to be changing on a year to year basis. And as I kind of said earlier, it's important to have a goal, but as I'm probably not focusing on the goal as heavily as I probably could or should. Like it's not where I am in my stage of life, as in I'm only 36 still, so I'm not like looking to retire and not do anything for many years. I'm currently in a vocation that I really enjoy and get a lot out of, and even if I wanted to change careers, I don't think I would just sit under a palm tree for the rest of my life and bliss out or sip cocktails or whatever it is. I'll always be kind of looking to do something, and the way my portfolio is structured at the moment is consistent with that. It's not very, very highly geared, but there is still a considerable amount of debt associated with it. But I'm not concerned with that at this point in time, because I'm not looking at just wanting to draw that passive income anytime soon.
So, what is he sitting on in terms of the market value of his portfolio and the cash flow it is generating?
Properties are worth almost $10 million in total, so about $9.5 million. I've got about in total aggregate get in excess of total rent from all of the properties, over 350,000 a year. But again, there's a lot of debt that is associated with the portfolio that I'm looking at paying down. So there's all the usual expenses. So it's not a $300,000 profit. It's a $300,000 less council rates and insurance and interest and strata, and et cetera, depending on the entities as well. But overall, it would be around neutral, I would say, if not a little bit negative, given that I've over the last couple of years, I kind of took a bit of a break when I started the business. A lot of my energies and focus were spent sort of going through getting the business off the ground. But I've kind of more recently started purchasing a few again. So anytime that you're sort of going through the acquisition phase, it does kind of put a bit of a dent on the cash flow, because a lot of the times you're not using your own cash to put down as a deposit. You're using your equity, so you're effectively borrowing like the whole amount, or even the whole amount plus the cost. So you're borrowing 105% of the value of the property, plus the fact that given the current state of the market, a lot of properties aren't massively positively geared, as was the case maybe 3 to 5 years ago.
Turning the conversation to books, Chuah recommends a book which kickstarted his motivation to invest in property.
The book that kind of got me started when I was wanting to learn more about everything. And this is very much on the psychology side as well, was Rich Dad Poor Dad, a very, very famous classic, but really kind of reinforced to me where I was in the kind of life quadrant of employee, self-employed, business owner or investor. It was like, oh, hey, I really need to do something. And it was really, it was a really easy read as well. It's, Robert Kiyosaki makes it very kind of interesting and with kind of little stories. And if anything, it was kind of an inspiration for me to go, hey, you know what? I need to learn more. I need to find out more. There's a whole world that's unexplored. And yeah, that was a great book.
A personal habit which he believes has contributed to his success is being constantly frugal.
I think a strong savings mentality from that was instilled by my parents. Sort of being quite value conscious. It was that was something that kind of helped you set aside money. So when I was living at home, I wasn't married, didn't have kids. At that time, it was quite easy to kind of save. And even when I left my full-time job and my wife wasn't working as well, it really served me well to have those habits of just being value conscious and having a view towards the future and towards saving and investing. So I guess financial savviness has kind of always kind of been with me. But it's just the habit that sort of that helped me with property investing, and also I guess a real inclination towards learning and growth and development. And yeah, that's I think that's always sort of wanting to expand the horizons and continue to improve my portfolio or my business or my relationships with my family or my team or whoever it is. It's always kind of that mindset, that just that continual improvement mindset.
So if Chuah met his past self from 10 years ago, what would he say?
It was kind of my cheeky way of saying, just have a shot at it, because if you don't have a shot, you're going to die wondering, and there's no worse pain than dying with regret, or getting old with regret and going, I could have done this or I should have done this. And a lot of the things that in the journey that I've been through, whether through the investment journey or the business or life in general, I've been really glad that I've just had I've given it a whirl, right? I've just I've given it a go, and sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way you initially wanted it, but there are things that you can learn from it, and all the good things have come from giving it a whirl. So when I said just buy everything you can, it's kind of like a metaphor for just put yourself out there. And I know it's a massive cliche, but I feel that it really rings true, because unless you kind of give it a whirl, then nothing's really going to happen for you.
If you wish to connect with Chuah and learn more from him, you can do so through social media or his company website.
Find us on mlsfinance.com.au, and that's my mortgage business right now. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm just happy to be able to help like-minded people. So, people who want to build a portfolio of properties. I've walked that journey before, and always happy to help my clients through the same journey. It's something that we specialize in, and we do every day. So, working with the banks, and it's not always an easy thing. And, when you approach a bank directly, is that bank the right one for you? Are they setting up your loans correctly? Are they setting your whole structure up correctly? That's what me and my team are here for. So, feel free to get in touch. There are no silly questions. Always happy to have a chat and share my personal experiences as well. So,
thank you to Sze Chuah, our guest on this episode of Property Investory. If you want to hear more about his journey, then visit our website at propertyinvestory.com.